Life keeps moving, and so do you. But somewhere in the middle of it all, there's still something God placed inside you that keeps getting pushed to the back burner. This is the Creatives Reset. I'm Coach Tiffany, and here we return to the source, clear what's been in the way so you can lead, create, and speak from the flow He's already placed within you. Let's get into the episode. It's April 24th, and you're further into this year than you plan to be, with certain things still sitting exactly where you left them in January. You're not lazy. You're not unfaithful. You're juggling. The kids have practice. There's a client project that you just wrapped up, and then there's another one that you need to get started on. You're on lunch duty this weekend for the kids' game. And somewhere in the middle of it all, there's this thing that God put inside of you that keeps getting pushed to tomorrow, next week, or what you just say, it's later. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to start on it later. And you picked up your phone looking for something, maybe inspiration, maybe just a minute of something that felt like it was for you. And you found this episode. You're in the right place. If you've been here for a while, thank you for staying. This is the episode I've been building toward. And if you're brand new, you arrived right on time. I'm Coach Tiffany, Christian leadership and capacity coach and host of the Creatives Reset podcast. And today, we are starting where most leadership conversations never go. Not with your schedule, not with your systems, not with what you need to add, cut, or optimize. We're starting with your capacity because that's where the real conversation lives. Can I ask you something before we go any further? What's the reason you haven't moved yet? Not the reason you tell others that sounds good or the responsible thing to say. The one that actually makes sense to you when you say it to yourself out loud. The one you've been believing. Maybe it's timing. There's just too much happening right now. And it wouldn't be fair to start something new in this season. Maybe it's resources. I need to save a little more, invest in the right tools, get the right setup before I can really begin. Maybe it's preparation. I need one more course, one more certification, one more confirmation before I'm really ready. Or maybe, and this one is quieter than the rest, maybe it's who am I to? Who am I to do this? Who am I to teach this? Who am I to lead this? Who am I to start this? Who am I to say this? I need you to hear me clearly on this. Every single one of those, timing, resources, preparation, permission, started as a thought, not a fact, a thought that sounded like wisdom and set up camp long ago to feel like truth. Those reasons aren't what's actually stopping you. They aren't even character flaws. And they are not evidence that you haven't been called. It's not evidence that you didn't hear God correctly. It's the mind drama that's dressed up as wisdom, old debris that has been in the well for so long, it sounds like it's your own voice. And I know that because I lived every single one of them from 2018 to 2022. I carried an assignment in my heart, but felt stuck. I heard the name God gave me for the mission that I'd used through podcasting, and I slowly sat on it. I talked about it. I shared it with others, but I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't moving. I was serving and connecting with others, helping others launch and selling products that seemingly aligned with my values, doing gig work to supplement income and fund a vision I had not fully stepped into yet. But every single season had a reasonable excuse. And every single season, the harvest was still there, and I was circling. The delay was real to me. I took thoughts about it, and it felt heavy. But God's calling doesn't expire just because I felt like I seemingly lacked the capacity. Your calling hasn't expired either. But what we do need to know and find out is which well has run dry and what got in the way. We talk about burnout like it's a scheduling issue. Like, if we could just find the right planner or the right routine, the right morning practice, we'll finally get caught up. Finally feel like we're doing enough. Finally feel like we're leading the way God called us to lead. But I want to offer you a different diagnosis today. Burnout is not a time problem. It is not a discipline problem. It isn't even a faith problem, though it can affect your faith deeply. Burnout in the life of a called woman is a capacity problem. There's a difference. A time problem means you need a better schedule. You need to get things together. You need to plan out your calendar. You need to put it in your Google Calendar or use Perplexity. How many of us love AI out here? AI is doing its thing and it's helping us to get things done, right? A discipline problem means you need more willpower. Now, we don't focus on that in the kingdom, right? Because we know that God has given us free will, and trying to willpower or strive your way through something, it don't work like that. He has given his beloved rest. But a capacity problem means something is stopping up the flow. And until you find it, it doesn't matter how much you pour in, you will keep running dry. In Genesis 26, Isaac kept digging wells. And every time he struck water, he found something life giving and productive. The Philistines stopped it up. They threw dirt and debris inside. They quarreled over it. They accused him. But Isaac didn't stop digging. He kept moving until he reached a place called Rehoboth, the wide open spaces. I want to go ahead and read some of that today from Genesis 26 so we can see and have a proper introduction to this. And I want to share that with you all. And so as I pull that up from my phone, I want you to take some time and think about it. I'm going to start with verse 1 and probably skip around a little bit. I'm not really sure because I'm not using my physical Bible, but it's going to read the same. I'm in the English Standard Version. It says, "Now there was a famine in the land besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. And the Lord appeared to him and said, 'Do not go down to Egypt. Dwell in the land of which I shall tell you. Sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and to your offspring I will give all these lands, and I will establish the oath that I swore to Abraham your father.'" That's a good promise right there, right? Like, you know that God is going to literally establish the oath that he already swore to your father. Okay? He says, "I will multiply," in verse 4, "your offspring as the stars of heaven, and will give to your offspring all these lands. And in your offspring, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, "She is my sister." Now, come on now. For he feared to say my wife, thinking lest the men of the place should kill me because of Rebecca, because she was attractive in appearance. How can you say this is like a generational thing going on? Because Abraham did the same thing, his father. Verse 8. When he had been there a long time, and saw Isaac laughing with Rebekah, his wife. So Abimelech called Isaac and said, "Behold, she is your wife. How then could you say she is my sister?" Isaac said to him, "Because I thought lest I die because of her." Abimelech said, "What is this you have done to us? One of the people might easily have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us." So Abimelech warned all the people, saying, "Whoever touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death." And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him. Y'all see that? Because God said what he said earlier. He said that he was going to multiply, right? And even though Isaac lied, God blessed him 100-fold as he sowed into that land. Okay, verse 13. And the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours." So he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." And I'm going to stop there. That's verse 22, where the Lord made room in Genesis chapter 26. And we just like look at the tenacity of Isaac to continue to dig, to continue to search for, to continue to look, because he was already wealthy by that time, but he was digging these wells. So God finally made room for what had been stopped up for Isaac, for what the Philistines had did. They were putting him in this position because of what they kept doing, but they finally found a place where they didn't have to quarrel over anything. And I want you to catch that, because your capacity wasn't destroyed, it was stopped up. If you think about your capacity as these wells, by seasons of demand that asked for too much, you would think that's, your capacity is running out. By voices of doubt being thrown into something that God told you to dig into and explore. Like he told you to go through that, to do the work to get through that, right? And then by disagreements between who you are called to be. Actually, as I was reviewing some things earlier today, I saw something that said, don't say to your kids, who do you want to be, right? Because God already made us who we are. And sometimes people try to put something else on us and say, that's who you are. One of the instances is a photographer. You are a photographer. Well, no, actually, there's something that I get to do. And God has gifted me with this, and I do it well, and I love doing it, right? Or God has gifted me to design things, and I'm very good with my hands, and I'm an artsy person. I love doing that. Or God has gifted me with a voice. It is not who I am. Your career is not who you are, basically. And this is what we need to see. And so, who has God called you? He's called you and He's purposed you with who you are to go out and to help others and to share your voice with others, right? And we need to see and we need to understand our assignments, because an assignment is something that we are called into, we get to do. We've been studying Peter in Acts chapter 10 and Cornelius over on our Nourish and Thrive Live. We have Devotional Reset Lives on YouTube. And we've been studying that. And Peter has this vision of these things that he cannot eat, but God is telling him, I need you to kill that and eat it. And he's like, no, Lord. And it's like, oh, wow, that's the first time I saw a no, Lord, because most people say you can't say no, Lord. They don't go together. And he says, no, Lord. And he says, what I have called clean, you don't call unclean. Go ahead. And he gets this revelation that he gets to uh, go and have community with Gentiles, and that he cannot call them unclean because God has called them clean. And so the things that's been stopping you and getting in the way of the assignment, we want to examine what that is, because sometimes we're holding up progress because there's something inside that we're dealing with. It could be a disagreement. It could be something that somebody else said. And that world keeps telling you who you are. And you need to stand up and say who God has already made you and what He has assigned you to, because sometimes people want to put you in a place. And we want to see if we are being led by the Spirit, or are we listening to too many voices? And so you can also be weighed down by so much. Like Hebrews 12 actually tells us to lay aside every weight so we can run with endurance the race that was set before us. And that's not somebody else's race. It's yours, right? God didn't assign you to serve at all six services every single time you go to church. He didn't assign you to carry your team members who left their work undone on the project. He didn't assign you to scroll through comments on social media and get all upset, ruining your day, ruining your attitude because of what people are saying. And it begins to actually slowly reshape how you even see yourself. Not like you're unknowingly, unconsciously reading these things, and it's getting into your spirit, and it gets into where your belief actually lies, right? So those are some of the things that get in the way of the flow, right? And you've been trying to draw from the well ever since. The living water hasn't stopped flowing. His living water hasn't stopped. Something got in the way. And moving forward, this is how we will address your creative reset. We find what's in the way, we clear it out, and we help you draw out rivers of living water from the true source, Jesus Christ. Now, before we go through each well, I need to give you the principle that makes this whole framework actually work. Every stop up well started with a thought, not a feeling, not a failure, a thought. Something happened. A season felt hard, a door closed, someone said something, a deadline passed, a project stalled, and in that moment, you took a thought about something that was actually neutral. I want you to stay with that word, neutral, because I know that might feel offensive right now. How is what I'm going through neutral? But consider this, the same circumstance that stopped you is not stopping every woman on the planet. Someone else is in a different city, in a different country, and in a different season, and they're facing something remarkably similar and drawing a completely different conclusion from it. That tells you something important. The circumstance didn't stop you. The thought you took about the circumstance did. And that is actually good news because you cannot always change your circumstance, but you can always, with the word of God and the power of the Holy Spirit, change how you think about it. This is what Paul meant in 2 Corinthians 10:5 when he said, we take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Not some thoughts, every thought. That's not passive. That's not just positive thinking. That's active participation in your own renewal. So today, I'm introducing you to the 6 wells of capacity. We're not just identifying life categories that need fixing. We're identifying the areas where a thought took root, debris accumulated there, and the flow of what God placed in you got stopped up. The wisdom well gets stopped up when the thought says there's too much noise and I can't hear God clearly anymore. The wellness well gets stopped up when the thought says if I stop, everything falls apart. The witness well gets stopped up when the thought says, who am I to be seen, to speak, to lead? The work well gets stopped up when the thought says, I have to earn my place before I can walk in my assignment. The wealth well gets stopped up when the thought says, I don't have enough to invest, or I can't charge that much. The wiring well is where all of those thoughts live at the root, the oldest scripts, the deepest patterns, the ones running so quietly you forgot they were running at all. And the way I help women clear what got in the well is what we do here together. We reset with scripture by bringing it directly to whichever well has run dry. Rivers of living water, the creative's reset. Not to feel better, to think differently. Because Romans 12:2 doesn't say be transformed by the renewing of your feelings. It says be transformed by the renewing of your mind, your thoughts, your decision right now to take what God says over what the debris in the well has been telling you. That's the creative's reset. That's what we do here. And so before I let you go, I want to bring you back to where we started. You know, Martha was busy. She was genuinely busy. She's not lazy. She's not unfaithful. She just buried under the weight of everything that needed to be done. Now, I didn't talk about her earlier, but if you go to Luke 10, you'll see what's going on, verses 38 and 42. And I've talked about her a lot. I don't know on this podcast, but on my first podcast, the renewal well, I did. And I'm just bringing this back because you might have saw her inside of the way that I introduced this episode. And Jesus didn't condemn her for it because she wanted to know why her sister wasn't helping her in hospitality. Jesus simply said, one thing is needed. That's the invitation he's extending to you today. Not to do more, not to figure it all out before Friday is over, not to have a perfect plan for the second half of this year. Just one thing. He said, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Not rest as a reward for finishing, the rest you diligently enter into When you cease from your own striving, the wide open spaces, Rehoboth room, that's where your leadership is restored. And I know some of you are like, leader? Who am I to lead? What did I tell you about those who am I to? That's something that's stopped up. That's a well that's stopped up. That's where your creativity flows again. That's where the wells get cleared, not by your effort, but by his living water. So here's your one thing for today. Philippians 4:8. Before today is over, take one thought that has been stopping up your well. One thought you've been calling wisdom, calling responsibility, calling preparation, and run it through this filter. Is it true? Is it noble? Is it right? Is it pure? Is it lovely? Is it admirable? Is it excellent? Is it praiseworthy? If it doesn't pass that standard, it's debris. And you have permission right now to lay it aside, to let go of that weight. Hebrews 12:1 says, lay aside every weight and sin. It doesn't say to carry it more carefully. It says to let it go, lay it down, lay it aside. I wrote a book to help you do exactly that. It's called the Bible Memory Verse Journal and Coloring Book, Philippians 4:8. I wrote it because I personally had difficulty remembering what to think on. And I found that sometimes you can't write the words, but you can color. Sometimes your hands need something to do while your mind begins to settle. Sometimes the path back to the word is quieter and slower than we expected, and that's okay. It combines coloring pages, memorization, and structured journaling prompts. One section for each attribute in Philippians 4:8. If you're walking through grief, through overwhelm, through a season where the thoughts have been louder than the word, this was made for you. You can find it at color.thecreativesreset.com. I'll also put a link in the show notes. Now, if something in this episode named what you're living in, if you heard yourself somewhere in this conversation, would you do one more thing before you close out this app? Follow or subscribe to the show because I don't know what app you're on. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. It helps other women who are circling the same wells find their way here. If you laid something down today and you're not sure yet what your one thing is, I built something to help you find it. Just go to focus.thecreativesreset.com. And if you've been sitting on a podcast, if you have a message and calling and it's still in your head and not in the world, the Let Go and Launch workshop was made for you. You can register by going to letgoandlaunch.com. I'll put that link in the show notes too. I'm Coach Tiffany, and this is the Creatives Reset. Thank you for listening to our first episode of our official second season. Grace and peace to you. God bless.